uh, I am. So before we get started, like, really, fingers crossed. I hope things work out tonight, because like I unplugged my Wi-Fi and everything, and unplugging my Wi-Fi typically means that everything kind of is normal for a bit. So that means Discord won't hopefully cut out on me, but we'll find out. Okay.
Hasn't yet.
Yep. Good so far. All right.
Let's go.
Woo. Hi friends, how's it going? Welcome back to the InkGuild Podcast. I'm Dean, joined today by Alex.
Hello.
And Gabe.
Hello.
And today we are going to be talking about our favorite characters. With such a broad topic like that, I feel like I should start narrowing what we mean. So by our favorite characters, I mean pretty much any characters across movies, TV shows, books, video games, whatever. But we did have a couple limitations, and I think our priority was no original characters, so no characters that we've created, because we've already done or we're planning to do our own episodes on that, and I think that's about it. So we'll go about it in the order. So I'll speak first, then Alex, then Gabe, and then we'll cycle through our three respective picks. But before we get started, we should probably, because it was such a broad list, we should probably go through our honorable mentions first. And my first honorable mention for, I guess, this part is Mario from like the Mario games, because he's very influential, a very influential video game character for all of video gaming in general. I guess why he ultimately is an honorable mention is because his story isn't really that complex. I guess in terms of like storytelling and all that, like I guess like because of the market that he's in, it doesn't have to be. He just needs to rescue Princess Peach, save the Mushroom Kingdom, and that's about it. We all know it, and we all love it, even though there's been like multiple iterations of the same story. But that's whatever. Alex, your honorable mention.
Yeah, my first honorable mention is, I'm totally not going to pronounce his name right, Jesper Fahy from Six of Crows.
Hey.
This, I guess, a quick reason why I like him. He was my favorite character in the books. He's kind of like a character type that I find myself drawn to a lot, which is like charismatic, kind of flirty, but he's also like a sweetheart. I don't know. I enjoyed his character arc, and I just liked his personality a lot.
Yes, I was more of an Inej person, but that's its own thing. I can talk about that in another.
He's also
yeah. So anyway, Gabe, who's your honorable mention?
My honorable mention is Goro Majima from the Yakuza series.
Nice.
I don't know if you guys ever played those games. He's basically like a supporting character, vague villain, but just kind of a dickhead throughout the series, like a hilarious dickhead. That's basically his character. He just shows up. He's a dick. He's hilarious to watch. He's not an especially complex character, and I'm not like very invested in him. But every time he's on screen, I'm happy because he's wildly entertaining.
It's important.
Very, yeah. Just there's always got to be something about a character that sticks, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, to get properly started with the list, my first actual character that I want to talk about, and one of my personal favorite characters as of recent memory, is John Wick from the John Wick movies. I think for the sole purpose that it's a very simple character arc. So if you're not familiar with the John Wick movies, John Wick is a retired assassin who is I guess among like the best in the world in this like super elaborate, very detailed world that the movies kind of base themselves around. And John has retired because he found someone. He found a woman that he could settle down with, and it's all like it's all pretty sympathetic enough. But you know, I guess not to get too much into spoilery territory, but shit happens, and ultimately John comes out of retirement to I guess deal with the shit that's happened. He is, I think, or he was one of my first picks overall because his story overall is very general and pretty generic. I mean, like, it's not too complex in the way of like, you know, I have so much of this to deal with and stuff. Like, no, like you kind of understand where he's coming from, especially if you have seen the movies. But what makes him so likable and what makes him one of my favorite characters, at least, is that he's just so fucking cool. Like how he's presented and how his story is told throughout, I guess, the 3 movies and eventually the 4th one is so entertaining to watch. Like how he carries himself as this like very slick, very like collected individual, but like at the same time is so badass when it comes to fighting and when it comes to, you know, getting his way. Like it's so cool, pretty much. Like I wish I could probably come up with a better way of saying it, but like, yeah, John Wick's just pretty badass, and he's my first character. I think
wiping out the Russian mob to avenge your dog is pretty based.
Yeah, like there's not too much. Like I said, like you could pretty much just sum up his entire motivation as Gabe just did within a sentence. But like how that all carries forward, it's like there's still enough about his cool factor to kind of like keep you invested. Like he, you know, there's no fancy armors, no fancy like weapons or stuff like that. It's just a guy with a gun, and it's Keanu Reeves. So a little biased overall because I love Keanu Reeves, but yeah, that's my
as
first
soon as
pick.
you said that, I was like, oh, there we go. That's
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to hate Keanu Reeves in general, and when he's when he's allowed to kind of be like the badass that we know that he can be through John Wick, like it's hard. Like it's really interesting to see just how sweet and how humble John Wick is, and then suddenly he is portraying this like incredible badass in John Wick. Like that's another thing that like kind of makes me invested overall in John Wick's characters. Like, this is sweet. I don't think after seeing Keanu Reeves that anyone else could really pull off that kind of character. Like, you know, it's always like the portrayal of a character in live media always helps, and I think Keanu Reeves is probably the best way of bringing this character to life. I guess all of my last minute points have kind of been brought in. Alex, who is your first character?
I just changed the order of my list because you said something about the actor portraying the character, and I was like, okay. So my first pick is Hannibal Lecter from the TV show Hannibal, specifically because I haven't finished any other versions of the story. Yeah, in the show he's played by the actor Mads Mikkelsen, and he does a brilliant job of making Hannibal like both like a likable character and also like the worst person imaginable.
Yeah, it really, there's really like, there's so much that makes, I guess, taking a villain basically, or like a serial killer, whoever, a cannibal in this sense, like, and making them like, it's seriously so strong on the actor's part to make you invest in it, is what I'm trying to say.
It is, for sure. And I mean, like, honestly, the writing in the show is brilliant. But I think even with the writing as good as it is, I'd be it'd be difficult to be as impressed by another actor as I am with Mads Mikkelsen as Hannibal. He does a good job of making Hannibal like very charismatic. Like Hannibal's a show I've watched multiple times at this point, and honestly, like the more times you watch it, the less I like, or the more times I watch it, the less I like Hannibal as a character. But like the first time you watch it, you're kind of going through, and like just because of how charismatic he is as a character, you're like, okay, I know he's a serial killer, but is he? Like the writing
I'm pretty sure he is.
He makes eating people look very sexy.
Yeah,
he is a serial killer. He's not a good person at all. But like the way the show is written and the way like the character is played as like this charismatic guy, he gets along with everyone. He's incredibly clever and always gets away with like everything for a long time. And so like when you're watching the show the first time, especially the first season, it really makes you go, okay, I know that he's the one who's doing this stuff, but like you're so convinced by his performance as a person that you're kind of like it makes you doubt it, which I think is brilliant writing, because that's kind of how the characters in the show would be feeling about Hannibal as a person. And I think being able to reflect that in the TV show's writing is also brilliant.
I think like going back to what you were saying about like how he's like the portrayal is just so convincing and so like alluring that, you know, you kind of start falling or investing in the character a lot. Like I've seen, and this is a whole other thing, but like I've seen like fan edits of Hannibal and Dexter and all like these characters that are so clearly twisted, but there's like an appeal to them, and it both scares me and like kind of makes me like it really scares me. First of all, it really scares me, but like at the same time, it's like it must be a really well written character that you would fall for a psychopath. And I guess
honestly, like the writing in Hannibal is honestly top tier. It's like a beautifully artistic show, and I think it really captures that appeal of like serial killers that seems to be like sweeping through our society right now. Because you know, it's like every episode there's like multiple dead bodies, and it's really horrific and gory. If you can't handle gore, don't watch this show. But like at the same time, it's like the way that everything is presented it's so artistic, and it's like you're like, that's like really disturbing, but also it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, this is just me talking about how much I love Hannibal the show and also the character, but I think that the way the show presents itself and the way it presents the character of Hannibal like mesh together really well.
Yeah. Like you were talking about... Sorry. Yeah. Like you were talking about like...
Yeah.
You were talking about like the charm of the character and how well it was portrayed. And I'd imagine that like that's a really good thing when it comes to at least the portrayal of a character. Like to have such a twisted character, you'd need to have like a lot of charisma and a lot of like a lot of alluring things that make them so fascinating, and then that eventually suckers a whole lot of people in. And I've heard like a lot of good things about that show, like and of Mads Mikkelsen himself. Like even though I've never seen Hannibal, like that's always been the role that I've associated with them the most personally.
Yeah, if you can handle like the amount of gore and stuff in it, I would recommend it personally. Because again, and then talking about like the appeal of it, like it makes like I said, I've watched the show 3 times at this point. And every time I watch it, I like Hannibal less as a character. I still like him as a character because I think he's really well written and really well acted. But like as you become aware of all of the things that he's doing to like manipulate all the other characters throughout the show, it just like the more you watch it, the less you like him. I think it does a good job of having that like charismatic appeal on the top, and then like the more you think about it and the more you dig into it and the more you watch it, the more you're like, wow, this is really fucked up, huh?
Yeah, I'd imagine so. All right. I guess with that being said, so Alex, you're done talking about... Are you good?
Yeah, that's my main points. Yeah.
Cool. So, Gabe, who is your first of your favorite characters?
The first of my favorite characters is a character who is just, as described by another character in this game, is known as the prickly prick who will bury us all. His name is Daniil Dankovsky. He's the protagonist of a game called Pathologic. I remember you and me talked about this, Dean. I love him so much. He's so well characterized. As basically his backstory is that he's this ambitious young doctor fresh out of like med school who goes to this town in the like Russian steppe because he wants to cure death essentially, and he finds that there's this guy who is super old, and he goes to this town, and a whole bunch of shit unfolds after that. But Daniil Dankovsky is one of the wildest characters to play as in a video game, and to just experience secondhand if you play as one of the other playable protagonists. But he's such a dickhead. He has such flagrant disregard for the town and the townspeople, and he's so like well characterized as a dick too. There's like one of my favorite things about him. There's like when you play as him, there's like dialogue prompts you can choose that are the worst thing you could possibly say like to this person in this context. Like there are people in this town who have clairvoyancy and like can see the future, and as the Bachelor you can disregard all of them and just be an asshole. He has like prompts where you can just out of turn say a Latin phrase because he thinks it sounds cool to say just a Latin phrase out of context, and it'll make him look smart. He's so well characterized as just this snobbish elitist dickhead, and I don't know why, but I'm so in love with him. Every time I go to play this game, I have to play as the Bachelor because he's just so entertaining to play as, and he's so like interesting to just see the world and see this story through the mindset of a man who's just has no regard for human lives and just wants to do his science stuff.
Nice.
And he's got a wicked design too.
Nice.
He looks like a character straight out of like Dishonored or something. Here, hang on, I'll send something.
Cool. I'll flash up an image on the podcast too.
Yeah, and like his costume, you can't see his costume because it's a first person game, obviously. But like, I think even down to his costume, there's aspects of characters you can read. Like he's going into this town with scientific ambition, and he's worn like the best suit he could find. He's not really here to like be a scientist. He's not really here to do good. He's here to impress people. He wants to impress his scientific peers by accomplishing this incredible achievement of curing death, and he wants to look as cool as possible doing it. Mm-hmm. He has no regard for people around him, and that's something that you like get into a lot when you play as both his character and when you play as the Harrispecs. You get into the fact that the Bachelor is this influential character in this story, and he has a huge role to play into whether or not this plague will be cured. And this is a man who has very little regard for human lives. His goal is to create a vaccine, and he doesn't give a shit about the people at all. If you play, I'm going to go into spoilers for a little bit here, but if you play the Bachelor's story to completion, the ending of the Bachelor's ending, at least, is literally that he asks the nearby military to firebomb the town while him and the rich people in the town who have all not been affected hide out in basically a super complex that was built to protect them from the plague. So him and all the rich people go and hide out. They're all vaccinated. The entire town and all the people in it are firebombed, and he's accomplished his scientific achievement at a flagrant cost of human life. He's basically a dick, and I don't know. In playing as him is just so interesting because it's like, I know there's a lot of games that try moral ambiguity or like will have you play a straight up evil character. Mm-hmm. But what I love about the Bachelor is he's not really straight up evil, more that he's just an ignorant, uncaring dickhead.
Yeah.
And
like I was going to bring up too, like like it's interesting that you bring in like just how much of a dickhead he is, because we had kind of briefly talked about it before, but just how just how interesting like terrible characters are.
Mm-hmm.
Like their convictions and what they believe in is so twisted. Like, morally it's wrong, but at the same time, just how they how they're presented, I guess, and how they carry themselves, it's enough to really like carry you through their journey.
Yeah.
Like at the very least, like you might still think that like where they stand morally is terrible, but at the same time, it's like they're clearly sticking with you. Like they're clearly they've left their impression on you.
Yeah, and the way the game like conveys his character through the fact that it's a game where you play through 3 different campaigns as 3 different characters, and the way that it conveys his character sometimes in these campaigns is really genius at times. I think the best example is there's this one mission during the Harrispex campaign where you find out through a bunch of the nearby worm people. There are worm people in this game. Skip past that. That there's a bull that has been like injured nearby, and the bull's blood can be used to create a panacea. So as the Harrispex, you get as much of the blood as you can at the moment, and you organize with some of the other town leaders that you're gonna get the bull to some medical help so that you can get even more blood so that you can create tons of like cures for the virus and help cure all the people in the town. And if you play them in sort of a chronological order, I guess, you remember that as the Bachelor, you had during one of your quests, you talked to the commander, and the commander told you that a bunch of the villagers in the poor section of the town are gathering around an injured bull, and you offhandedly order the bull to be burned overnight because it's a health hazard. So when you go back to the bull the next day as the Harrispex, you find the military are torching basically the charred remains of the bull, and a villager tells you that there's nothing left. The blood that you got yesterday, that's all we've got. That is all that we have to make a cure now.
Jesus Christ. That's graphic. Yeah, it sounds like quite the dickhead, but I mean, like, he's left the impression, right? And like as everyone has probably seen by the cover art, like he's certainly like he's got a striking look to him. He's
very jacket, interesting looking.
Yeah, the jacket, the the red shirt underneath, so that really has a nice pop to it. And I don't mean to like go too much into like overlooking things, but like the contrast with like the red with the red vest underneath and the black coat, like it really does tell a lot, like color wise. Like this is a very like morally fucked character, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a coincidence that this game is Russian either. In H-Bomb's video, he makes an interesting point about how the fact that like this game's sort of themes of people who dream of a utopian future, and then contrasting with like the people who would have to be stepped on to get to that utopia contrasts heavily with like the history of the Soviet Union.
Yeah, shit. There's a lot to this character.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So it's interesting. So our first 3 picks respectively are in their own ways very, like, I guess controversial in a way. Like John Wick is a very snappy,
very dark.
Snappy killer. Hannibal Lecter is a charming cannibal. Yeah, charming.
And a cannibal.
Yeah.
Serial killing cannibal.
Yeah, and then we got, I can't pronounce the name of this character.
You can just call him the Bachelor. That's what they all call him.
Yeah, so we've got the Bachelor, who is this arrogant or ignorant dickhead. It's interesting I say this because my next character is so far from that. And it's a Disney character, and more specifically, it is a robot named Wall-E.
Best boy.
Yeah. So I guess for personal reasons, to kind of get that out of the way first, Wall-E is, I think, one of my favorite Disney movies ever. it's the one that I can really remember, or it's the one that I can remember the best, like plot wise. I can pretty much remember like how everything goes according to the story, and that's very like it means a lot to me, because with other Disney movies, I think particularly Disney movies, like I can only really remember like key scenes or like one or two lines here and there. But with WALL-E, like I can pretty much remember the entire plot of it and a lot of lines in verbatim. But yeah, so why WALL-E is one of my favorite, or is my second pick, is because I guess it's just the one that's the most unique out of all the characters, because he is a robot that has been left behind, or that has been, I guess, been built to kind of deal with the world's trash. Like, we all know the story of WALL-E. It's a pretty old movie, but it's interesting though, like how they've given this model, or like this WALL-E model, sentience pretty much. So the ability to kind of look at human emotion and feel what it's like to love and hold hands and stuff, like how important it is to have connection, especially for like a robot that doesn't necessarily need to have that. Like, I guess when it comes to robot stories that like, or I guess like robots learning or understanding human sentience and emotion, like that's always fascinated me. And WALL-E, I think, certainly is the one that best illustrates it, not just for adults but for kids. Like, you kind of like kids can pretty much understand the movie on its own. Like, you don't really need complex thinking to understand WALL-E. But with adults, like, now that you know so much about it, like it's kind of like, or now that you know so much compared to when you were a kid, it's like you can really understand just how interesting and how important emotion is to a robot like WALL-E, who is designed pretty much for one thing. Like, his relationship with Eve, his relationship with the cockroach, pretty much, and just interacting with the humans up on the spaceship that I suddenly can't remember. Like, it's so cute and it's so charming. Like, how like I've talked about how characters carry themselves, and WALL-E is like, he's so cute, he's just so lovable. Like, you don't really, like, he doesn't need to like express in words just how incredible he is. It's a lot of showing how genuinely good this character is, which is, I guess, like a big thing for storytelling, right? Like, you're obviously told to show and not tell. And with WALL-E, it's like the chirp, like the little sounds that he makes when he's, you know, trying to like communicate, like how his eyes pretty much just like fold in and out whenever he's trying to express his emotions. Like, it's almost never verbal sometimes, and that, I think, is what makes him a really compelling character, in the sense that he doesn't need to ever really say anything. And when he does say things, like when he's saying Eve's name, like, that's like, oh, he's learning how to speak. That's so cute. Like, I love him. I love him. Like, he is one of my favorite Disney characters, I think. Like I've said in the beginning, he is one of my favorite Disney characters, and that's, I think, like top 3 of all time. And like, as a kid, I loved him. As an adult, like, his impression on me is still kind of lasted. Like, I had, like, one of my first ever Funko Pops was of WALL-E. So he pretty much...
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, you didn't need to say anything, Gabe?
No, I was just gonna ask, how does a WALL-E Funko Pop work? But it's a dumb question.
Well, it doesn't really move. I wish it did, but that'd be nice.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that Funko Pop started the, I guess, needless collection of all the ones I have currently. It's easy to, like, he's easy to draw, like, because I draw a lot in my free time, and the few times that I've drawn WALL-E has almost always been perfect. Like, I never needed to rely really on like references that much. Like, I can almost pretty much like remember what he looks like from memory. And I guess it helps that, like, he is not just, like, he is definitely a great character, but he's seriously one that fits so well with the world that he's built in. Like, he's not just the single one carrying that movie. He's certainly a really important part of the movie, obviously, because he's, like, the movie's named after him. But, like, just how he influences the world without being the sole one to change everything. in my way, like that just makes him like a really important character. Like change starts off with, or change has to start somewhere, and it's fun. Like I guess as a kid, it's cute to see a robot doing it, but then as an adult that is kind of grown up with this character, it's really heartwarming, and it's really nice to see like robot restoring humanity pretty much, which I guess just contradicts what I said. Like he isn't just like the sole character or anything. Like he's a very important character, and I love him so much.
People bust a nut over like the Up opening as that's the best Pixar opening, but hot freaking take, that opening sequence from WALL-E where you get no backstory, essentially you get told nothing, you just see WALL-E, he's hanging out with the garbage, you get like little blurbs of information about what happened through the TVs that he walks by, but you don't really get a lot. You just see WALL-E interacting with this post-apocalyptic world, hanging out, literally just fucking vibing. That's like I don't want to sound melodramatic, but I do think that's like a cinematic masterpiece. That opening 10 minutes of WALL-E where he's just chilling and hanging out in a post-apocalyptic world. That's like incredible storytelling.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like,
you need to rewatch this. I haven't seen it forever. I don't think I've seen it since the first time I watched it, which was when it came out in theaters.
Man.
So
it's so cute. It's so like, I guess like knowing what we know about nuance and showing, not telling, like it really is, or I guess like I've said already, like it really is proof that you can tell.
Like a masterpiece of showing, not telling. It's like there's no dialogue, there's no, the only dialogue you ever get is the TV that he walks by and the people talking in the movie that he watches, and that's not like pertinent dialogue. He doesn't talk to the cockroach. That's something that I noticed, that like if it was like a lesser movie, you would have your protagonist say something to the cockroach and like they would start talking to their pet, but WALL-E doesn't really do that. He just sort of looks at it and makes weird chirping noises, but you understand. You just get it. And then he's such for a character that doesn't have a mouth or like eyebrows, he kind of has eyebrows, but for the character that doesn't have a mouth or can't speak, he's very emotive, and like you see his interactions with things and you just get it. You just understand what he's thinking.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. So he's my number 2.
He's got a really cute character design too.
Yeah. Just
he's adorable.
Like it's not even like, it's just the characters, like the character design fits so well with the world and everything around it too. Like it's kind of sad that like these bots needed to exist in the first place, because we I guess we as people kind of influenced all of like, or the need to have him in the first place. So he was born pretty much to clean up our mistakes.
I mean, it's like a hilarious irony that my favorite little joke about it, and I'm not even sure if it's supposed to be a joke because it's not like a haha funny joke, but it's a weirdly mature joke for a kids movie. But when like he's hanging out with all this garbage and there's talk about like the environmental disaster, is intercut with WALL-E opening up like a solar panel on his chest. Like the robot built to clean up the garbage is eco-friendly. That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. There's so much comedy in that movie too. Like comedy and like, you know, how awkward he is around Eve, and like the little moments of like accidentally crushing the cockroach, but like we know cockroaches can't die. Like there's so much to it. Like and this is just like the first third of the movie pretty much, before they head off into space, like before there's more dialogue and before there's more like characters to kind of keep a tab of. Like the movie presents itself and tells the story of WALL-E so well that you don't need to know everyone else yet. Like you're already so invested in this one character that when everyone else is introduced, it's like, okay, so you've already made me so invested already. I want to see where else this character goes, and especially with like just how the story is, like how WALL-E has paced itself throughout this story. Like when he eventually, I air quote, sacrifices himself, like you feel so much, man. Like you kind of have a feeling that like he would be back to normal, but like in the few moments, and I kid you not, in the few moments where he was resurrected, where Eve had, you know, like rebuilt him, and he had lost all of his nuance and he had lost all of his personality. In those first few minutes, I swear I thought it was. I'm pretty sure I was crying because it's like, no, he's back, but it's not the same. Like, I think, like, I cried as an adult reliving that. That was bad. But then again, I cry at a lot of things.
Have you ever seen the Wall-E like concept art?
I have not, actually.
I would give that a Google. He looks like a moon, like a Mars rover.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll be sure to look that up on my own time. But anyway, that was what. Did you look up the concept art?
Yeah, it's so cute.
Okay, well, I guess now I'm obligated to. We'll put a break on the podcast. And we're back. So, after discussing Wall-E, I feel like we should now move on. So, Alex, who is your second favorite character?
My second character...
Or, I guess your second pick.
Yeah, the second character that I'm talking about, because I just finished season 3 of this show, is Anne from Anne with an E, which is one of the more recent adaptations of Anne of Green Gables. And I haven't like read the books or seen any other adaptations of it, so this was kind of my first exposure to that character. And I kind of like fell in love with her a little bit. She's kind of, I think, she's the kind of character that I could see myself really liking as a kid if I had bothered to pick up the books at all. She's very imaginative, and she's not afraid to like be herself. Which is something I really like about her. She's very unique compared to the people around her. But she's also, I think, a very realistic character in that, like, she's committed to being herself and she's committed to standing up for herself, but she still has moments of doubt and she still like makes mistakes that she has to deal with. Anne with an E is a very weird show for me because it's like historical fiction, which is not something I delve into very often. But I think like Anne is a very realistic character, and I think there's just something about watching her interact with her new world that is very endearing.
Nice. What does this character look like?
Well, she's Anne from Anne of Green Gables, so she's got the red hair, the like late 1800s style clothing, always in the hat.
Cool.
I don't know.
Like, I only ask because like, you know, some people might not be familiar with it, but
I'm just used to thinking that Anne of Green Gables is well known enough that most people have heard of it.
That's fair, but I mean, you know, maybe not. You know, there are those few people that might not know, right? So
yeah. So yeah, she's a cute character. She's very fun. She likes to play imagination, and like pretend to be other characters and like have these deep conversation. And she's really good at like speaking up and like delivering poetry. She's also incredibly smart, in a time where it wasn't as accepted for women to be smart. And it's like the show is 3 seasons. I'm pretty sure it was canceled after season 3, which I'm really upset about. But like you kind of like watch her grow up from like a young orphan girl who's finding a family for the first time, and then the effect that she has on the community around her, and like the way that she stands up for people and she stands up for herself and she makes people think about things in a different way. I was actually debating whether I wanted to talk about Anne or her best friend Diana, because Diana is another really interesting character in the show, in that Diana is from like a high class family. She's very rich. She has these expectations of like going to finishing school in Paris, and then coming back to Canada and being like a perfect housewife. And Anne is the kind, and Diana is like kind of, because she's been raised in this specific kind of family, she has this, she's fairly close-minded at the beginning of the show. And you get to watch her through her friendship with Anne. She becomes more and more open-minded. She starts caring about like who she is as a person. She starts going, well, it's my life, it's not my parents' life. If I don't want to go to Paris to go to finishing school, maybe I shouldn't have to. And it's just really interesting to see the effect that Anne has on like all the characters, but on Diana specifically. Like there's multiple times where Diana will be faced with something that she's been told her whole life is wrong or bad or not right. And Anne will embrace it wholeheartedly, and it'll make Diana stop and think like maybe it's not wrong. Maybe my parents were wrong about that. And to see her like reconsider her thinking. Yeah.
Sounds like a really impactful character, to say the least.
Yeah. I really like this show.
So I guess like there's like a lot of personal investment then for you. Like she really, I guess, had an impact on you basically.
Yeah. I found myself relating to Anne a lot. It's a Canadian show too. I think it's filmed in like Ontario, but it's Anne of Green Gables, so it takes place in PEI. But so there's that, which you don't see a lot of Canadian characters in media. So there's that. But then she's also like incredibly imaginative and creative. She likes reading. She's smart and she's not afraid to show it. But she's also she was just a character that I find myself really relating to. And she's not afraid to stand up for what she believes in, even in the face of so much adversity. Because again, the show takes place in like the late 1800s. So, you know, you've got racism everywhere, misogyny everywhere, like homophobia everywhere. And the show kind of tackles all of that in like measures, and tries to like obviously it's historical fiction, so things aren't going to go perfectly, but like it's still something that you see Anne fighting for because she believes that like people are people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. Sounds like a very good role model for a lot of younger people. Definitely one that I feel like would still be needed at a time like now. But I guess that's just going into too much. Don't want to always apply politics and all that stuff into fun conversations like this one. So, I guess we can move on to Gabe's second pick, which would be, I mean, unless there's something else to share about Anne of Green Gable.
No, that's pretty much everything.
Cool. I don't want to be that kind of like, oh, okay, we can move on, but oh wait, no, sorry, I had something else to say.
You have to cut me off at some point, Dean. I could talk about this stuff forever.
Okay. Well, I mean, like, you know, there's never a time limit on these. So anyway, Gabe, who is your second pick? Sorry, it's my own little nitpicky thing, but that was so robotic. Who is your second pick? So yeah, who's your second pick?
My second pick is a character called Vino from this awesome obscure anime that no one else I know has ever watched called Baccano. Have either of you guys seen Baccano? Please tell me one of you guys has seen Baccano.
I have not.
It's on my list.
I know about it, but
I would definitely bump it up your list. It is underrated as hell. And Vino is an incredible character from Baccano. Basically, Vino's whole deal is that he's an assassin for the mob, and his gimmick, I guess, his assassin gimmick is that he's named Vino, is nicknamed Vino, which is the Italian word for wine, because he always walks away from crime scenes just completely drenched in blood. Like, he looks like he's soaked in wine, essentially. So he's earned the nickname Vino. Very sinister. Just like from an action standpoint, he's a total badass. Every time he's on screen, he's like doing acrobatic kicks and flips and shit. He's like a former circus performer. That's in his backstory. They don't really go too in depth in that, but he's an incredible character to watch. He's animated really well. The best part about him, is that halfway through this fucking story, there's one arc in the story about a train robbery. There's these two gangs that are both trying to rob a train at the same time. And halfway through the fucking story, it's revealed that he's also a potentially supernatural serial killer called the Rail Tracer, whose whole thing is that he whenever he's not being an assassin, he's a train conductor. And if there are ever like people trying to rob his train, he becomes this demon, the Rail Tracer, who hunts down and brutally murders anyone on the train who doesn't have a ticket. It's insanity to watch him like as a character play out. He's so averse to like any of the seriousness of the mafia. He's so averse to like any of the drama of the two gangs, like having a sort of gang war on this train. He's just a complete subversive to basically any prior established plot point. He just comes in to literally throw a wrench into the machine and just disrupt everything you think you know about the series.
Yeah.
He has an insane philosophy too, which I don't want to get too into it because the way he explains it is so entertaining to watch. I don't totally want to spoil it, but he basically believes he's God. He essentially believes that he's like the center of the universe, and not like in an egotistical way, like he's the most important person. He literally believes he's the only person, and that everything else, every single other person in his reality is a figment of his imagination, and that when he dies, everything else will cease to exist.
Oh, wow.
It's bonkers. It's so much better than I can really give it credit for.
Yeah, I just looked up Vino's design. Wow, he is violently attractive. He's very good looking. He's very handsome.
Yeah,
too, I know that's just like one thing, but like I see like why, or like as you described, like why he's called Vino, and like Jesus, it is.
His real name is also Claire Stanfield, which I think it's super interesting that he's called that, and it's never like really drawn attention to that he has a traditionally girl's name. He's like, it's just there. And yeah. I think it's neat that they just did that, and it's not really drawn attention to. Also, what's up?
He's like finely attractive. He's not like super attractive.
I don't think he's like super attractive, but okay, listen. This is what I was about to say.
Dean, violently attractive.
I know that you're not like a dub guy traditionally. Baccano is a show set in like the 1930s, like in 1930s New York.
Ooh.
I would go so far as to say watching the sub is like downright unwatchable. You watching it in the dub with like the awesome New York accents that these voice actors do in the show, especially Vino, it's wonderful.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, oh yeah, dubs versus subs is a whole other thing. Yeah, I am, I guess, traditionally more of a sub. Oh no, I'm more like I like subtitles a lot more, but like I do appreciate good. Okay, look, you two are laughing. No, I didn't mean it like that.
This outcome on yourself.
Okay, look.
We're not you, Dean. It's something we already knew.
How long have you guys known?
Since last week when you said you wanted Manon to step on you.
All right. Fine. I guess we're learning new things about ourselves every day. Anyway, like, yeah, I can appreciate like good attention to like historical like accuracy, and by I think accuracy I mean like just like nailing a good New York accent during the 1930s, like that is like. Whew.
And his New York accent that was like another thing that I was about to say. Like, he's decently attractive just visually. When this motherfucker starts talking, this is like the most charismatic character that I've seen in an anime. His voice is just so naturally appealing to hear, and he has such a nice way of speaking.
Could probably step on my throat. Anyway, yeah, like, so is it like another one of those, like, does he have like any weapons to him? Like, it's like I don't see any
entirely hand-to-hand combat. That's another thing I really love. Everyone traditional mobster weapons. They got machine guns, they got submachine guns, they got pistols.
Yeah.
Which just on a side note, rare to see that as in anime. Just characters just straight up using guns.
Mm-hmm.
But then some characters have knives. I think there's one character who has a sword, but I can't remember their name offhand. But what makes Vino and his combat scenes so interesting to watch is that he's like purely martial arts, purely acrobatics. There's nothing like, he's not like a boxer either. He's not like a brutal fighter. He's just a brutal killer, but he moves with like an elegance that you would expect from like a circus performer, but is insanely brutal when he actually goes in for the kill.
It's like a bloody Dick Grayson.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually a great analogy. He's like a murderous Dick Grayson.
Dick Grayson's from Batman, right?
Yeah.
More like Batman is from Dick Grayson. That's how I feel about
That
it.
doesn't make any sense.
That's how I feel about it. Dick Grayson's better than Batman. That's
When I don't
another
know-
conversation for another day, though.
Yeah.
Clarification.
What was that, Alex?
I'm saying when I don't know who a character is, all I'm asking for is clarification.
That's fair.
Fair
I wasn't.
Okay. Just all right. I think before I say something else stupid, let's just move on. So, I guess now we're rounding up our last set of picks for now, because we are doing two parts to this list. So my third pick for now is Nathan Drake from the Uncharted games. And again, just to get the personal stuff out of the way first, he was pretty much like one of the three big PlayStation exclusive characters that really kind of stuck with me and what made me fall in love with playing video games more, essentially. Like, so it was Nathan Drake, Sackboy, and one other character that I'll get to in part 2 of this. But Nathan Drake is just so charismatic. Like, he's so likable. Like, how, and I guess it's just towards the delivery of two factors: the writing and Nolan North, who is his voice actor. Nolan North is just phenomenal. I love him so much. He like, I cannot imagine Nathan Drake as anybody else. Maybe Nathan Fillion, but like, you know, that's wishful thinking. But yeah, so Nolan North as Nathan Drake has been, like, those two have been related. Like, you know, you can't really separate the two of them since Uncharted 1. And like, it's just so, like, how he just like delivers his performance, or how he delivers his performance with so much charisma and so much like so much swagger sometimes to this character. Like, whenever he's like quipping with Elena, or like, you know, having exchanges with Sully, like, there's so much like genuine heart there that it feels like a real conversation, that like he really does like suck you into the world that you like, that they've put yourself, like, it sucks you into the world pretty much because of just how real and authentic Nolan North's performance is. Like, and it helps too that, like, on top of voice acting, he's also doing a lot of the motion capture for it, so you can kind of like understand just how much Nolan North is putting into this character. And the other factor that I mentioned as to what makes Nathan Drake one of my favorite characters is the writing, and like just how smarmy he can be sometimes, but at the same time how sharp he is with his attention to detail just makes him really well rounded. Like, he is like, he can be a pompous dickhead towards one character at some point, but then he can also be very sharp, very, you know, very alert. And I guess like he really pays attention. Like, he takes what he does very seriously, but he knows when to joke around and when to, you know, when to have some fun and cut loose a little bit, which makes him like, which doesn't make him static, which doesn't make him a static character by any means. Like, it makes him very dynamic. It makes him like, it shows that there's a lot more to him than just being a treasure hunter or being a dickhead. Like, he's a well-rounded, likable asshole, I think. Like, and that's kind of pretty much with the first 3 games, essentially. Like, and again, I don't want to go too much into spoilers because I really want people who have never played the Uncharted games to experience just how great of a character Nathan Drake is. But in Uncharted 4, when the story kind of takes I guess when the story focuses less on kind of the more outlandish things that happen in Uncharted 1, 2, and 3, and focuses more on relationships. So like the relationship between him and Elena, and him and his brother Sam, and him and Sully, like the writing really works in that favor because it evolves with the times, right? And you know, to get into another PlayStation exclusive that I'm going to be talking about in part 2, like it really kind of like adapts with the current audience. Like it's kind of like if you played Uncharted 1, 2, and 3 in your preteens, then playing Uncharted 4 is pretty much a necessity once you understand a lot more of it. So pretty much when you become an adult, because then it shows just how much it's grown with you. Like there's still a lot of Nathan Drake's signature charm and I guess alertness that I've talked about already, but at the same time it humanizes it even more than it already does. Like you can tell at the start of Uncharted 4 and throughout the game that like he really is like trying to like invest and keep his mind alert, but you know, problems with Sam and whatever. And I'm probably like butchering the explanation because I haven't played it in a while, but like how Drake is presented less as a unstoppable treasure hunter in Uncharted 4 is amazing. Like I know a lot more about storytelling now than I did back when I first started playing the Uncharted games. So I was kind of expecting a lot more of a grounded story, and it's good that I got that because like Nathan Drake went from lovable to really, really enjoyable as a character, because then like you kind of understand what he's been through, and you understand just how much he's had to like suffer through and how much he's trying to change. And that's important. I feel like that's a really important character quality, especially for video game characters that have been so, I guess, typecast in a way. Like you kind of associate Nathan Drake as this like, you know, cocky adventure hunter, but through Uncharted 4 and through an evolution in storytelling, he has become my favorite character because he has changed and because he knows more than he used to. And ultimately that's what I think any good character is, or at least in my book. Like I like characters that are either pretty simplistic, but there's enough about them to care, or they change with the times and they understand that, you know, you can't always be the same person and you shouldn't always be the same person. And it's good to see that one of my favorite video game characters reflects that. So that's
quick
it.
Q. Which Uncharted is your favorite?
Uncharted
1, 2, or
4.
3? No. Nice.
Do you want to contest that?
I can't really. Uncharted 4 is really, really good. I was
like
2 is my favorite, but that's not like I was
like, if you want me to think if you're speaking all time, then it's Uncharted 4. But if you're speaking between 1, 2, and 3, then 2.
Okay.
Yeah. Like Uncharted 1 was really good. Uncharted 2 was fantastic, and then Uncharted 3 was pretty good.
Nathan Drake he's like kind of the perfect swashbuckler.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no, I agree. He's a very lovable, sort of, kind of a dick, but like,
yeah, like
not a bad person. He's just kind of a bad boy.
Yeah, pretty much. Like he's got the swagger of a bad boy, but at the same time, like he can be really goofy. Like
he's a bad boy, but he's also a good boy.
Yeah. Like one of my favorite scenes and it's such an off thing, but like one of my favorite moments that I can still recall is like when I think it's Drake and Chloe on a mission, and there's like a swimming pool, and Nathan Drake hops into the pool, and it's just like it's just like this cute little moment where it's like Nathan Drake's like calling out like Marco, and then Chloe's like, what the hell? And then
I love how if you do that in future games, like he'll still try to play Marco Polo with the other companion characters, and they all have like that like I think there's an achievement in Uncharted 3 if you try to do it in Uncharted 3 where like I think it's something about like old jokes or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or he'll say Marco and he just gets no response.
Yeah. He's just so lovable. You can hate how he like talks to some other characters, but like at the end of the day, just I don't know. I have a thing for characters that change a little bit.
He's like the perfect adventure protagonist. He's like,
oh yeah.
He's a rough riding, rough, wild, dirty boy. He's a rowdy boy, but he's not a bad person. He's not a bad boy, but he's a bad boy.
Yeah.
But he's not like he's a good boy, but he's not a good boy, but he's a good boy.
So he's like,
that's Uncharted, baby.
Yeah. So like, there's stuff for you to enjoy. So like, if anyone's listening, please like do yourself a favor and pick it up. Just Uncharted, play through the first 3 games. I guess the main games, because I haven't played the one for PS Vita. Because
I think the Uncharted, like the Nathan Drake collection on PlayStation 4, I think that goes for like dirt cheap anytime there's a big sale happening.
Yeah, I got it for free for PS Plus. But I guess we're going too much into it again. So let's move on.
I'm not following the conversation at this point. So
what?
I don't know anything about the Uncharted games. I know nothing about them, so I'm not following this conversation.
That's fair.
I'm glad you enjoy them, though.
Yeah, they're very fun. Just to put it, just to summarize it in one sentence, in a very, very simple sentence, they're very fun.
They're kind of like how I mean, like I know I love story-based video games, but I do think Uncharted is kind of the model for how I think a lot of games should be. Like, just
absolutely.
The story is there, but you're here to have fun at Indiana Jones antics.
Yeah.
The story is present, but it's not like... I think that's a mistake a lot of games make nowadays, where the story really overpowers the game, that even Uncharted 4 didn't make.
Yeah, that's true. And you have a good protagonist to carry you through in Nathan Drake. So, moving on. Alex, who is your third and final pick for this episode?
Cool role. And her name is Jester. And I'm sending you guys an image because I love her design.
Ooh.
Oh my god.
Oh, is
so
this
Critical Role?
Yeah,
Critical Role is a D&D show. Like it's a podcast / web series. You have like a bunch of like well-known voice actors sitting around playing D&D together. And so Jester is the character in the second campaign of Laura Bailey.
I love Laura Bailey.
Yeah, so Jester is...
Like, I love Laura Bailey so much.
Like I said, they're all really well-known voice actors. Like, you've got Matthew Mercer, like Sam... Liam O'Brien. It's like a big-name cast.
My boy! My boy! Okay, hang on. It's called Critical Role. Oh.
There's a lot of content to get through. I'm warning you, there's more than 200 episodes at this point, and they're all...
It sounds like he'd bear through it.
I've watched Dragon Ball and One Piece. I think I can get through this, especially if it's got my boy in it!
So anyway,
who's your boy specifically?
Matthew Mercer.
Matt Mercer, Matty boy, best boy. Yeah. I love that boy.
He's the dungeon master.
I bet he is.
Yeah. Anyway, Jester is my favorite character in the second campaign, because they have the first campaign and then they have the second campaign, which is still ongoing. She's a tiefling cleric, a trickster cleric specifically. So she's basically one of the more chaotic characters on the show. She follows the god known as the Traveler, and basically she spends a lot of time... Like, there's one scene in particular I can think of where they go to a temple of, I want to say it's the Platinum Dragon, and she just basically spends like a good like few minutes just, graffitiing like dicks all over one of the statues.
Oh, I love her so much already.
Queen.
She's a high energy.
Queen shit. She's so great already.
We stand.
Yeah. She's like a diehard romantic. She likes cute things. Like she's a cleric, so one of her main weapons is a spiritual weapon, which is like, if you know anything about D&D, or rather if you don't know anything about D&D, spiritual weapon is like you can like summon a weapon and it's magic and you can use it to hit people without like having to hold it. So her spiritual weapon is a giant lollipop.
That's so cute.
And you can see in the image I sent to the group chat, she's got these little like pink hamster unicorns that she can summon.
I love her outfit.
Yeah, this is her level 10 redesign. I can send her like original one as well because it's also really cute.
Mm-hmm. I love the design of that. The colors work so well.
Yeah, and that's her original design.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, she's high energy, gets along great with all of her friends. She's like one of the few characters in like this campaign that doesn't have like a mysterious backstory, which, you know, is a D&D like stereotype, like trope that's used a lot. But she's just fun loving. She's looking for her father. She's very supportive of her mother, who's a courtesan. And she's super excitable. She tends to put like everyone else before herself. Like she has a lot of insecurities and stuff, but she tends to kind of like shove that down on the surface and focus on her friends and the people she cares about. There's like a recurring joke about how she's like a cleric who doesn't like to heal people, which is funny. And I'm trying to remember all the things I love about her. There's so much I could talk about. I adore her. She's also like I mentioned, she like draws dicks a lot. That's kind of one of her things, is she draws like green dicks all over the place because green is the color of the traveler, and then, you know, dicks are a joke.
Yeah, they are.
She's artistic. She like has a journal that she keeps in a lot. And so she has like lots of drawings and doodles and stuff. And Laura Bailey will actually like post like little doodles from her actual journal sometimes that she's like doodled in the game, which are so funny. I can't get over again, sorry to cut in, but like I seriously can't get over the fact that like it's Laura Bailey. I love Laura Bailey so much. For those who might be a little bit more familiar with Laura Bailey, you could probably associate as her being the voice actor of Abby from The Last of Us, and I love her. I love her so much. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, I'd already spoken about the character design, but like it looks really nice too. I can't get over it. Like just the starting design and what you sent first, like the little, I guess like unicorn mice or something.
They're hamster unicorns.
Oh, hamster unicorns. Okay, yeah. Like it's like a really nice like colorful shade of pink too. Like,
yeah,
it's so nice. I love it.
Yeah, and her design is.
Yeah, it's coming from someone who doesn't know too much about D&D, like in general, but I know about Critical Role. Like I've heard about what they do, but like and how like crazy and how like interesting some of their characters are, and knowing about Jesper is like, oh, that's so cool. It's like it makes like it just
Jester.
Oh, Jester, sorry. Like Jester is the kind of character that just like radiates happiness. Like it makes me so happy looking at the design.
I'm gonna send you the other character that has like the best design on the show as well. Just because this is completely irrelevant. Just you can cut this out if it's unnecessary, but like
that's sweet. I like that. That's badass. I love like the little like pirate scarab too.
I love a scarab. Coat.
Yeah, the coat.
It's a nice coat. It looks like a rug. I mean that in like a good way.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so that's the first one is Molly Mock Tea Leaf. He's played by Taliesin Jaffe. And he's also a tiefling. And he has like the best design on the show. Like I love Jester with all my heart, but Molly's design is top tier. Oof. Yeah, and then the other one I sent is Caduceus Clay, who is also played by Taliesin.
Nice. I love the green.
Yeah. But yeah, so Jester owns my whole heart. She's been my favorite character.
No, I'm just saying, like, I guess this is free endorsement for Critical Role.
They don't need any endorsement. Everyone already likes it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they don't need the extra endorsement, but like still, just from a world builder's perspective and like someone who like loves to create a bunch of characters, and I'm pretty sure you can relate to this, Alex, considering like you have like whole like galaxies worth of stuff. Like, it's so like just how everything works for like just Jester. It looks like it just works. Like you don't even like I said, radiates happiness. Got that wholesomeness to it.
How does Critical Role like work? Is it like is it audio?
They do a live stream every week on Thursdays where they like get together in person. They're being precautious right now because of the situation, like a huge break. But yeah, they record it live and then they like sit around a table and play. And then the video is uploaded to YouTube Monday, so you can like watch it. But then they also have a podcast, which I think updates Thursday morning, like a week behind. So you can watch like the whole, or listen to the whole thing as a podcast, or watch all of it on YouTube.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think my immediate assumption was that it would be like, that it would be like animated over it, but that's interesting. So
well, they are making an animated series of their first campaign.
That's sweet. Right. That'd get a whole lot more eyes too. And
and I imagine they'll do they'll do the second campaign if it gets enough attention, which it will. And once they get there, because they have to get through the whole first campaign, which it's 115 episodes plus a couple of years of time before they started streaming. And then the second campaign is just at the time of recording just did its 103rd episode, I want to say. The 104th episode will be recorded tomorrow. There's a lot, but like Jester has owned my heart from the very first episode of campaign 2. I warned you, Gabe. There's a lot.
All right. Okay, I guess let's move on, since just unless we want to have Alex talking for another hour just on Jester, which honestly I'd like that, but you know, we have one final character to discuss before we move into part 2. So Gabe, who is your third and final character for this episode?
My final character is a character called Senator Armstrong from a game. Have you guys ever played the Metal Gear games?
I haven't played all of them, but I have played.
No.
I have played a few of them.
Have you played Revengeance?
No, and that's probably why I don't recognize them, or don't recognize Senator Armstrong.
Okay, all right. So first of all, yeah, the game is called Revengeance. Just to set the tone for what that game is, but Senator Armstrong, I think I one of the reasons why I love him is I know that we've been doing it before we get into why we love the character. Talk about like what the character is in the story, and part of the reason why I love Senator Armstrong so much as a character is how seemingly flagrantly in defiance of narrative tradition he is. So for context, you basically go through the whole campaign, you're playing as Raiden, and you're going through this whole conspiracy, and at the tail end of the game, in the last 40 minutes, the main villain appears for the first time. and from that description, you might think, oh, well, that's stupid. What a terrible way to introduce a character in a story. And in any other story, you would probably be right. That's a terrible way to integrate an antagonist into a story. But
yeah, especially the main one.
Yeah, this is the main villain. Like, there's no mincing words about it. This is the character who has been the mastermind behind all of the conspiracy that you've been unraveling for the game. This is the first time he's appearing in the entire game. He shows up for a maximum of 40 minutes in a 10-hour campaign. And he's the best character in the whole game. He's one of the best characters in the series. It's like he shows up. All right, for comparison. All right, name like any, like, think of like any story that you really like, and imagine that it has no villain up until the last 40 minutes, where a senator dressed in a business suit who looks like Hulk Hogan shows up, starts screaming about how awesome right-wing politics are, beats up your protagonist. They get into the craziest fist fight you've ever seen, and that's Armstrong. This is not a game that took itself seriously. Like, up to this point, there's a line where a character unironically says the sentence, "Your memes end here." This is not a game. There's a character called Monsoon, and this whole deal. What?
Did I hear that right? Your memes end here?
Hang on, I will send the screenshot.
I don't think he started.
And
even if he did, I'm still believing him.
A major plot point of this game's story is that there are memes, and they're trying to control America using memes.
That's amazing.
And Senator Armstrong's deal is that he wants to like use American memes to start a war with Pakistan because he wants to reignite the war economy.
Holy shit! That's honest. That's incredible. I really regret not playing this game.
You should totally play this game. It's fucking wild, and even more wild is that once he is that the discourse surrounding this character is probably the craziest part. The amount of people, once Armstrong, 30 minutes of Armstrong's 40-minute first appearance is spent with him essentially monologuing to Raiden what his worldview is and what his motivations are, and how he wants to create an America that is ruled by strength, in which every American can basically start a war for whatever reason they want, as long as they truly believe in it. And there are people who just agree with him, who think that he's totally right, that this isn't the most bonkers, harebrained philosophy in fiction. And I think it just adds to how insanely well he's characterized for the brief time that he appears. His final boss fight is probably the best final boss fight in a video game. It's not the hardest, and it's not the most emotionally impactful, but you walk into this airbase, he shows up in a giant mech, and he tells you that we have to kill you to preserve the war economy. So he gets into the mech, you destroy the mech, and he gets out, and you actually see him, and he's this huge, buff man. He's this extremely buff giant.
No.
What the hell?
This senator.
He's a lot buffer than I was expecting him.
Yeah, honest to God, that's
he's gigantic.
dude, he'd be signed by any he'd be on the dot. He'd be hunted by every professional wrestling company ever.
There are so many lines that this man spouts that are just pure gold. There's the aforementioned "Don't fuck with this senator." There's "I played college ball, you know," and to which Raiden says, at some cushy Ivy League school, and he says, "Try University of Texas. Could have gone pro if I hadn't joined the Navy." Every line he says is a total disconnect, because the game hasn't taken it's in a weird phase space, because it hasn't taken itself seriously. It's been silly, but it has taken it's in that weird way Metal Gear has always been, where it's like a
Sharknado.
It's kind of nuts, but no, not really. It's kind of nuts, but it takes itself seriously enough where you can believe it.
Okay.
Weirdly enough, that line where he says "Your memes end here," and where Monsoon memes the DNA of the soul, that's a seriously played scene. But this whole sequence with Armstrong is for clarification, just to enunciate how much that scene is that whole sequence is kind of in on the joke with him. Right after he says "Don't fuck with this senator," after which he kicks Raiden into the mech, an audio clip plays of a football stadium cheering.
That's awesome. I love that.
It's such a it's such a bold move too. Like just having your villain show up in just the last 40 minutes, spout off pure gold one-liners, and then the game ends right after your fight with him, which is just, I don't know, narratively it's like narrative shit posting almost. It's like writing shit posting.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting that like one of his lines, he literally says that we'll make America great again, but this game came out long before Trump even announced his run for presidency. So
wow, there really
stole
isn't
that from someone else.
There really isn't anything original about him, is there? All right. Well, before we suddenly get canceled by Republicans, let's wrap it up for tonight. Or let's wrap it up for now. So we've got part 2 of our favorite characters. I think shortly after this one goes up, we'll see. But I guess tune in for that. So with all that being said, we'll see you in part 2.
Bye.
Bye.
Peace.